Folks, I have another little quick video here I wanted to show you. I've just pulled it up. I've never looked at it. I've never listened to it. We're going to listen to it together, and hopefully you guys will have an opinion on this if you're watching this channel. Don't have many subscribers right now, but we're trying. But anyway, let's take a look at this and see what it has to say about with the bar. Let me get it up here.
The demonization of the police is not only unfair and inconsistent with principles of all people should be treated as individuals, but gravely injurious to the inner city communities. It is for this reason that in selected cities where there has been an upsurge in violent crime, we are stepping up and bolstering the activities of our joint anti-crime task forces. In the wake of George Floyd's death, violent rioters and anarchists have hijacked legitimate protests to wreak senseless havoc and destruction on innocent victims. The current situation in Portland is a telling example. Every night for the past 2 months, a mob of hundreds of rioters have laid siege to the federal courthouse and other nearby federal property. What unfolds nightly around the courthouse cannot reasonably be called protest. It is, by any objective measure, an assault on the government of the United States. As elected officials of the federal government, every member of this committee, regardless of your political views or your feelings about the Trump administration, should condemn violence against federal officers and the destruction of federal property.
And you know, folks, this is, it's true. We do need for our government elected officials to stand up to this violence from Antifa and the riots, but they're not. You know, they're not condemning it. And they're more or less promoting it. You got George Soros paying these people, you know, millions of dollars to have all these riders out there. They stash weapons. What was it the other day? The cops found magazines and Molotov cocktails in a bag alongside the road in a bush. They found bats. They found guns, weapons, stashed in where these people were holding these riots. And they're actually throwing like live commercial grade fireworks at these federal buildings in Seattle. And I don't know, in Portland, they're trying to destroy all the courthouses, federal courthouses, and they want to do away with law, but I don't see that happening. But I don't know. It's kind of crazy. But Barr, you know, Mr. Barr's right. The Democrats and Republicans alike, all your elected officials need to stand up to this violence and condemn it. And, you know, the media, the mainstream media, I think if they would cut them out for like a month, these riots would probably stop, you know. The media eggs it on. You got these top mainstream media, you got Fox, CNN. Fox ain't so bad, but some of their stuff I don't like. But CNN definitely, you got too many radicals in there, too many crazy radicals in there. You know, they don't know what they're doing. A bunch of crazy stuff. But yeah, we need to do something about these riders, and if they're not going to stand up to these riders, it's going to continue. So this is for you Democrats out there, you elected officials in office, either state elected, government elected, whatever, federal. You know, you need to stand up to this, condemn it, and we can't tolerate this. from either side. This needs to stop. There's innocent people losing their lives over this crap. And you guys, you Democrats, are just standing there, and you Republicans, you're lazy. You're not doing a damn thing either. And when Trump tries, he gets shot down every time by Nancy Pelosi and Chucky Schumer and their crew. Jerry Nadler is a pain in the butt to this government. He needs to go too. He needs to retire or be impeached. I don't know why the people that elected him in office ain't recalling him, because he is out of his mind. He lies. He said Antifa's a myth. Antifa's not a myth. And there, Mr. Nadler, you're a myth. You are nothing but a lie. You're full of lies. You're the devil incarnated, whatever it is. Bunch of demons. But anyway, I just wanted to show you this with Barr, because he's right. Antifa does need to, they need to back off. They need to go somewhere. They need to be labeled as the evil that they are, terrorists. And if Trump's not able to do that, then that Democratic Party won't let him do it. I figured the Republicans would let him, but the Democrat Party, I doubt it. They like it. They like all that stuff. They like the fighting and the carrying on, because they think it gives them the advantage in this election year, but it don't. Let me read this here article to you. It says, bad faith media members tell. Let me see something here. Hold on. Let's go here. All right, here we go, folks.
Are really peaceful protests. And when they do actually acknowledge violence, some faith media members tell you civil unrest in American cities are really peaceful protests. And when they do actually acknowledge violence, some media frame it as a direct result of President Donald Trump. You are being lied to. It's an audacious attempt to gaslight the American public, as some media continue their effort to help defeat President Trump. The Pacific Northwest is under siege. Nightly, riots overtake Portland. In Seattle, there were 3 costly and dangerous riots over the course of just a week. People are getting injured, and both businesses and public buildings are being destroyed or vandalized. And the media is pretending it's not really happening. After 60-plus nights of literal nightly violence, in which Antifa, agitators, and other criminal activists have tried to burn down a federal courthouse, Yale professor Dr. Philip Atabagoff told MSNBC that the only people firing here are federal agents. He laughably claimed all the protests were peaceful, and then all of a sudden federal agents show up, and it's become violent. In an interview with Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin, Al Sharpton chided Trump for describing what he deems as out-of-control protesters, though we've not seen that. Durkin responded by calling it absolutely right. 2 days before this interview, rioters burned down 5 construction trailers at the area's future juvenile detention center, destroyed a Starbucks, and threw ammunition at a police precinct. It was a riot. This isn't just sloppy, neglectful coverage by media outlets unfamiliar with the Pacific Northwest. These statements are lies. It's a masterclass in gaslighting. I've covered the demonstrations, and they're anything but peaceful. But you don't have to be in Seattle or Portland to understand what's going on. A casual Twitter search yields video after video after video after video of the violence. So why are we being told the violence isn't happening? It's part of a strategic campaign to push back against Trump's re-election. Some members of the media don't hide their disdain for President Trump. I suspect many are angry that they gave then-candidate Trump so much airtime for his speeches in 2016. They thought the speeches would bury his chances, ensuring the anointed Hillary Clinton would ascend to the highest office. That strategy didn't work out well for them. Now, they're looking to bury his re-election chances to atone. But Trump's instincts to highlight the lawlessness in American cities, which extends far past the Pacific Northwest, is a winning political message. No matter your stance on any specific issue raised by protesters, your average American sees the folly of allowing fringe, radical socialists, and Marxists to destroy property. And if you're politically moderate, alternating the parties you support based on the issues you find important at the time of the election, it's an easy decision. If you value safety and law and order, Trump is the brand you go with. Joe Biden? His brand owns the lawlessness. It's his voters burning down businesses and attempting to kill or maim cops. So the media will come to Biden's defense as he hides out in his Delaware home. What violence, viewers may ask? You won't catch many videos of destruction and vandalism on CNN or MSNBC, after all, even though the media generally enjoys those kinds of attention-grabbing images. But you'll catch plenty of talking heads downplaying or ignoring the violence. Courtesy of Jason Rants /KTTH courtesy of Jason Rants. When they do acknowledge the violence, they shift the narrative to a partisan Democratic talking point. President Trump is to blame. Trump had the audacity to send federal law enforcement officers to protect federal property in Portland and Seattle. In the Rose City, the criminal agitators have been unrelenting in their assault against the property and the officers inside. This, too, is being blamed on Trump, even though the nightly violence unfolded for weeks prior to federal agents' arrival. While agents weren't used in the Emerald City, with rioters smart enough to stay away from the federal courthouse this past weekend, Durkin blamed Trump for the violence anyway. The riot, which Durkin called two riots earlier in the week. Those riots occurred before the city even learned federal agents were coming. The riot, which Durkin called peaceful, followed almost the exact same pattern as the two riots earlier in the week. Those riots occurred before the city even learned federal agents were coming. The media doesn't just pick up this revisionist history, it lets go unchallenged even more sinister talking points. On CNN, Mayor Durkin claimed Trump was sending federal agents into cities as part of a dry run for martial law. The scripted line was repeated on MSNBC. This line is coordinated. Repeated on MSNBC. This line is coordinated. Indeed, other politicians and media members are now using this talking point to scare voters away from Trump. The idea is to challenge our perceptions that Trump is here to protect us and restore law and order. Quite the opposite, he will use law enforcement to enslave us. After 3.5 years of this kind of alarmist, dangerous rhetoric, one wonders if the Democrats will learn this tactic doesn't work. But we can't be too careful. The casual consumer of news may pick up on the nonsense some media outlets continue to push. So we all need to fight back. The best way to push against the mediated Democratic strategy is to amplify the voices that tell you the truth about what's happening on America's city streets. There are plenty of images on Twitter and Facebook to retweet and share. There are plenty of pieces written for you to email to friends and family. Tucker Carlson tonight posts nightly videos exposing the violence on city streets. Share them. And, of course, do the same with this Newsweek column. Do what some media outlets won't do, spread the truth. And do what some media outlets won't do, spread the truth.
And you know, folks, that is have you ever noticed that everything is blamed on President Trump? They try to blame these riots on President Trump. CNN says it's President Trump's fault. MSNBC, NBC, CBS, ABC, some of the Fox people on there. Not all of them. You got Sean Hannity and I can't remember his name now. I just lost it. But anyway, you got Sean Hannity and you got the Ingram Angle, she's good. I love her. She speaks the truth. But if you want a real, if you want the personal point of, well, not a personal point of view, because he usually is facts. That's Timcast on YouTube. He's got his own channel. He's got two of them. It's Timcast and Timcast URL, where he's in there with Adam, and they get into some deep, deep, deep truths. They bring out the truth, and they point out the lies, and they bring everything to light. Some of it's their opinion, and I agree with most of their opinions. Well, I agree with all their opinions. But he's really good. But yeah, check him out. That's Timcast URL, or Timcast on YouTube. Tell him I sent you. But anyway, I want to go back up here and look at this video. Let me switch back over. Look at this video here. Right here, yeah. Let's watch this. See what he has to say here. Tucker Carlson's another good one. I like him. I really like him out of everybody.
Jason Rantz is a Seattle-based radio host. We're happy to have him on tonight. Jason, thanks so much for coming on. So you just had a lot of violence in the city of Seattle over the weekend. Tell us what you saw and tell us what the reaction from local government was, please.
Well, it's almost like we're dealing with a master class of gaslighting, because I know what I saw, and I know what a lot of people who saw the images that I posted online saw, which was violence, which was arson against 5 construction trailers, which was a Starbucks that was completely ransacked and someone tried to set it on fire. And they didn't, of course, stop at Starbucks. They also impacted some other businesses. But we're being told that it's peaceful, or maybe it's just a few people, a few bad apples at a larger crowd, as if they were redecorating the Starbucks with their rocks, as if they were celebrating police by throwing fireworks at them. What we're seeing is violence. What we saw was a riot, and anyone who says otherwise is lying to you. I understand that there's some nuance to go into when you're talking about a very large crowd and there are like 2 or 3 bad actors. But the entire crowd is almost full of bad actors. It started off peaceful on Saturday as they walked to the juvenile detention center. There was about 4,000, 5,000 people. Then they set it on fire. And then all of a sudden that crowd was about 1,500. The people who stayed are the bad actors. The people who stayed are the rioters. The people who stayed were saying some horrible things, and their goal is not to protest against police brutality. This has nothing to do with George Floyd. This has everything to do with a very specific ideology, and I think that there are politicians and media members who believe that this is going to create enough momentum and chaos to get Donald Trump out of office. I think it's a mistake. I think it's going to backfire on them. But I do think some of them are willing to sit by and see some of these cities completely get destroyed. And yes, some people lose their lives. It's an evil position to take, all because they are justifying, well, if we can get Donald Trump out of office, this guy who's supposed to lead us to the end of civilization. It didn't quite actually happen over the period of the last 3.5 years, but this time it'll happen if he gets reelected. They've convinced themselves this.
I don't know what kind of person could justify harming individuals in the name of winning a presidential campaign. I don't think any decent person on either side would ever do that, and I mean it.
Evil people. Evil people.
I think that's right. I think that's right. Great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you that. He was Tucker Carlson's a heck of a dude. Gotta get my hat straight there, shoot. Yeah, he's truthful, and he's got a lot of support behind him. I'm a big watcher of his stuff. I subscribe to him. He's excellent, tells the truth. Love his work. And people are scared of him, and they try to get him shut down, shut up. They can't shut him up. He's going to come out with the truth. They've threatened him, threatened his family. This poor guy's been through it all, but yet still brings you people out there the truth. And they try to blame all these riots on Trump, and he's out there telling you that no, this ain't Trump's fault. And to be honest with you, this is my opinion, the Democrats are at fault of most of this, all of it, if not all of it. I don't know, they just don't make no sense to me. You know, they try to play it off like it's Trump's fault. They try to push everything on Trump. But yet they're the ones bowing, taking the knee to these Black Lives Matter. They're bowing to them. I'm going to tell you, and I'll tell you straightforward, I will not bow a knee to Black Lives Matter. I only bow to one man, and that's God and God alone. And when he comes, everybody will be on their knee. So yeah. But there's other stuff in here. I can see if I can't pull some more up here. I saw some more. Let me go back in here and see what we can find. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump is not the fault. This has nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with Trump, but it's not because Trump did anything. It's because he was elected. And he is not the fault. The Democrats pull most of this off. You know, the government's first and most solemn duty is to protect the safety of the citizens, and the Democrats ain't doing it. So it's kind of disgusting, if you ask me. Let's check out this video. See Chicago violence by the numbers in 2020 and amid coronavirus. Take a look at this video, folks, and tell me what you think. Sorry.
There were 1,000 calls every 30 minutes. 50,000 more calls for service.
If you don't know, that was Mayor Lightfoot of Chicago. Mayor Airhead, if you ask me. But she's the cause of most of these problems. She eggs it on, she promotes it. She needs to be voted out of office or impeached or recalled, whatever they do, and get her out of there. She is no good for Chicago. But anyway, I digress. That is a big jump, folks. That is a big increase in violence.
with the city of Chicago. The FBI, ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshal Service, and Homeland Security will together be sending hundreds of skilled law enforcement officers to Chicago to help drive down violent crime.
Let's read these news articles and see what we can find out here. This is pretty good news network. It's okay.
Over the last few months, America's criminal justice debate has been focused on policing. But incarceration remains a divisive issue. The key question here is whether the U.S. has a mass incarceration problem. If it does, then mass decarceration is the obvious solution. While there is certainly a subset of the American prison population whose incarceration does not serve a legitimate penological end, that subset is not large enough to sharply cut prison rolls by, say, 50%, a goal the presumptive Democratic Party presumptive nominee, Joe Biden, has explicitly committed to pursuing. Pursuing that sharp a reduction in incarceration would necessarily require releasing, or refusing to incarcerate, chronic, often violent, offenders who pose a significant risk to the public's safety, particularly in communities already struggling with elevated crime levels, economic blight, and other social problems. The question of whether the U.S. over-incarcerates on a mass level is one many attempt to answer via international comparisons. Presenting America's incarceration rate alongside that of another Western European democracy can, at first glance, seem shocking, but such arguments reflect an oversimplification that masks major differences that go a long way toward explaining the delta between America's prison population and, say, Germany's, to take Mr. Levin's example. The most obvious of those major differences is the rate of serious, as opposed to general, crime, the sort that is most likely to be met with a long term of imprisonment. In 2018, Germany, with a population of approximately 83,200,000, saw 2,471 homicides, including both murder and manslaughter. Let's compare that with just a handful of high-crime slices of the U.S. For contiguous community areas in Chicago, Humboldt Park, East Garfield Park, West Garfield Park, and Austin, saw 121 homicides in 2018, with a combined population of about 189,846. Two police districts in Baltimore, Western and Southwestern, saw 100 homicides that year, with a combined population estimated at 103,052. Detroit's 8th and 9th precincts, combined estimated population of 160,354, saw 81 homicides in 2018. And three St. Louis neighborhoods, the Greaterville, Wells Goodfellow, and Baden, saw 34 homicides between them in 2018. Their combined population was approximately 19,352. In other words, just a few small slices of just 4 American cities saw, in 2018, 13.6% of the homicides seen in the whole of Germany, despite housing just 472,604 people, equivalent to about 0.5% of Germany's population. Another reason the United States has such a large percentage of the world's prisoners is simply a function of national wealth. As one of the world's most prosperous nations, America is able to dedicate an enormous amount of resources to its law enforcement apparatus. This is a feature, not a bug. There are many nations, like Brazil, with much more serious violent crime problems than ours and significantly smaller prison populations. Their lower incarceration rates are much more likely due to economic limitations than to a more permissive posture toward violent crime. The reality is that though there is certainly room for decarceration at the margins, imprisonment is a sanction generally reserved for serious, higher rate offenders who have proven themselves highly likely to reoffend if when released. Historically, only about 40% of those convicted of state-level felonies are sent to prison. In terms of who is in prison, just 6 very serious offense categories accounted for nearly 64% of state prisoners in 2018: murder, 14.3%, rape/sexual assault, 13.1%, robbery, 12.8%, aggravated/simple assault, 10.8%, burglary, 9.1%, and weapons offenses, 3.7%. On the other hand, drug offenders, who garner a lot of attention from decarceration advocates, constituted just over 14% of state prisoners in 2018, and state prisoners accounted for 88% of the nation's total prison population. Not only are drug offenders a small portion of the overall prison population, but they don't serve very much time. Nearly half, 45%, are out in less than a year. 1 in 5 are out in less than 6 months. Still, 15% of the prison population isn't exactly small potatoes. But the mere fact that someone is serving time primarily, i.e., not necessarily exclusively, for a drug offense does not mean he/she can be accurately categorized as nonviolent and released without endangering the public. According to a Bureau of Justice Statistics (BJS) study, released drug offenders actually had a higher recidivism rate, 83.8%, over a 9-year observation period than those released after serving time for a violent offense, 78.7%. More than 3/4 of those drug offenders were arrested for a non-drug crime, and more than a third were arrested for a violent crime, specifically. However one views the merits of the drug war, there's no getting around the reality that there is a significant amount of overlap between drug and violent offenders, such that the incapacitation effects of prosecuting drug crimes often prevent violent offenses. That reality was illustrated by a data point released by the Baltimore Police Department, showing that 70% of 2017 homicide suspects in Charm City had a prior drug arrest in their criminal history. Overall, a whopping 83% of released state prisoners are
And you heard that right. 83% of released state prisoners are rearrested for at least one crime. But I digress. Let's continue.
rearrested for at least one crime after they're released from prison, highlighting the importance of incapacitation, one of the 4 main penological ends served by incarceration. The other 3 are rehabilitation, deterrence, and retribution. The shootings, homicides, and other violent crimes plaguing many of them. Memorial in Southside Chicago. Kamil Krzyzewski/AFP via Getty Images. A big chunk actually had a to a Bureau of Justice Statistics, BJ. According to a Bureau of Justice Statistics, BJS, study, released drug offenders actually had a higher recidivism rate, 83.8%, over a 9-year observation period than those released after serving time for a violent offense, 78.7%. More than 3/4 of those drug offenders were arrested for a non-drug crime, and more than a third were arrested for a violent crime, specifically. However one views the merits of the drug war, there's no getting around the reality that there is a significant amount of overlap between drug and violent offenders, such that the incapacitation effects of prosecuting drug crimes often prevent violent offenses. That reality was illustrated by a data point released by the Baltimore Police Department, showing that 70% of 2000
That was 70% of 2,000 and some. Hold on a second here.
(2017) homicide suspects in Charm City had a prior drug arrest in their criminal history. Overall, a whopping 83% of released state prisoners are rearrested for at least one crime after they're released from prison, highlighting the importance of incapacitation, one of the 4 main penological ends served by incarceration. The other 3 are rehabilitation, deterrence, and retribution. The shootings, homicides, and other violent crimes plaguing many of America's neighborhoods are driven significantly by repeat offenders who have already had, and blown, many second chances. In Chicago, the average homicide or shooting suspect had, in 2015 and 2016, an average of 12 prior arrests. Are driven significantly by repeat offenders who have already had, and T.S. Another BJS study found that, over a 12-year period, 36% of those convicted of violent felonies in large urban counties were on probation, parole, or awaiting trial at the time of their arrests.
That, I just want to give you, like, that's the violence that's going on right now. And it's okay, folks, to have your own opinion. This is America. You can have your own opinion about what's going on. But the violence and the destruction of property that's going on right now, it's not a just thing. It's criminal, it's terroristic, and it needs to stop. It definitely has to stop. There's no doubt about it. But you know, I don't agree with opinions from those people on the left, but that's their opinion, and I won't argue it. But I mean, I will argue it, but I won't get violent over it. You know, it's their opinion, and they're entitled to that. It's America, right? I mean, it's your opinion. You should be able to have it. You should be able to. It's free speech. America's got freedom, but if these guys get in there, these leftists, there's no going to be no freedom in America. You know that. You're going to work to give them their money. They're going to take 80% of your wages and spread it around. Everybody will be making around the same thing. If not, then it's going to be criminal to them. So it don't matter what kind of work you do. And if that happens, these workers that get paid for the work that they do that we need, they're going to quit. They're not going to do that. They're not going to say, hey, I'm not going to get paid what they get paid to do a job that's 20 times harder than theirs. I don't know, folks. It's crazy. You know, there a couple of years ago, they was fighting over a $15 minimum wage or McDonald's raise, and McDonald's can go fully automated. They don't need all those people. They just need the cooks back in the back. That's about it. And one person up front, you can order off a menu. You don't need them. So they should be glad they got a starting job. You know, those jobs are just for starting out people, like people in school or in college, you know, something to get them through. But let's get back to the violence, man. You know, my opinion is that the violence ain't just. It's just a rebellion against capitalism, against President Trump. They don't like Trump, so, you know, and it's pretty sad if you wear a MAGA hat. If you have a MAGA hat and you show anything like that on some of these social platforms, they'll take your video down. But I don't personally own a MAGA hat, but if I did, I'd surely wear it. They don't scare me. But some of these people are getting their butts whipped out there, getting the shit knocked out of them for wearing a MAGA hat, killed, stomped on, humiliated, run off in these Democrat-run cities. I don't know, folks. I just think something needs to be done, and it needs to be done fast. And the only person that can do it is Trump. But until the Democrat Party, the Democrat House and the Senate, give Trump what he needs to stop this, it's going to continue. They're just standing in his way. They stop him at every corner. Everything that he tries to do, they attack. It's not right. It's not fair. They've never done this to other presidents. Obama was in there. He destroyed America. And you want Biden in there, or I should say, Biden. But yeah, Obama will probably be his first lady. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. But anyway, I'm going to end this here. This is going to be a short video. Well, a long video, actually. But, yeah, I'm going to end it here. And hope y'all have a good day. This is Jeff's Opinion Post. Leave your opinion in the opinion box. And I'll read your opinions. And we can discuss it if you'd like. But anyway, it's time to end this long video. I'm sorry it was so long, but there's a few things I had to get out there I thought was necessary. Okay, folks, you have a good day. Jeff's Opinion Post, and we are gone.